Hey everybody, it's Stephanie, and this is what we learned this week. So we are going to be learning about how to create textures on our papers for when we're creating animals. So this is actually going to be a two-part class. So this week we're going to be creating animals, and we're going to be thinking really outside of the box. So it could be a chicken with lizard scales and a giraffe head. So it can be really creative. But we're going to learn some different textures that we can put on our animals, and then next week we will actually be making the habitats for those animals. So as you're going through this process, you can start thinking about, where do I want my animal to live? Do I want him to live in the mountains or the ocean or in the desert? Or, you know, there's a million different places that you could have your animal live. So be thinking about those also. We worked really hard on trying to come up with activities that you should already have all the supplies at home, so you don't have to leave the house. You'll need a pair of scissors. You'll need something to color with. I mean, you can be really creative. It can be, you know, anything that you have at home. And then also something to attach things to. So it could be so many fun things. And then a couple of pieces of paper that you can draw on. So the first thing that we're going to be learning about is the different textures that we'll be creating. So I'm going to push this down here so you can see a little bit better what's going on. So these are some pretty simple textures that you can learn about. You can also look on Pinterest and or even just Googling like art textures, and you can do all sorts of really cool and amazing things with art textures. So you'll take your pencil for this part. I took a Sharpie just so that you could see it better. On this one, we're going to be making furry or hairy. So you just kind of draw it, and you kind of make it almost like a triangle shape with it, with a bunch of lines. And the more that you go together, it can make some really cool techniques. It could be feathers, it could be the back of a tiger, it could be all sorts of cool things. There's all sorts of fun things that you can do with that texture. Next we have scale, and this is really just a bunch of half circles put together. So here you'll just, you know, draw some half circles, draw more, until you get to the top. And then you can add some of the texture inside of the scales that we did. So here we added some of the furries. You could even do dots, or you could make like a bunch of lines in there and just make some really fun scales. Those would be great for mermaids or fish or really anything you want to do. I mean, like I said, you could add scales to a duck. Down here we have pointy, and this is a really fun one for scales also. So you could, you're basically just drawing the top of a triangle here. So you're just gonna go top of the triangle, top of the triangle, top of the triangle. And then if you wanna start doing some more layers, you can add some more. And these would be cool for like the back of a dragon, or even like the top of a bird. I mean, there's so many fun things you can do with pointy. On the character that I made, I actually used the pointy for the teeth. So that was pretty fun. And then on the bottom of my part, I used the scale, so it's pretty cool. Next is fluffy. So these are really just circles that are not connected. So you're going to just be doing a bunch of almost half circles or quarter circles that kind of go together on it. Then you can add some more as you go along. So clouds or fluffies, like these would be great for rabbit tails or all sorts of fun things, sheep. The next we have is wet. So again, this is similar to a circle or a square, but it's really loose and free-flowing. So this would be really fun to, like if you had a frog that was just jumping out of the water, those kind of things. And on the inside, you're making some waves as it goes through. And next we have woven. So for woven, I'm going to show you a little bit on how to do that, because that one's a little bit more complicated. So if you have your paper, and you can do this really on any paper, you're going to do 3 lines of 2. Once you have that, there will never be any drawings on the inside of these lines. We're just going to be drawing on the outside of them. So then you'll make some lines that go through it. So just like when we did the weaving in class, this is the similar effect. So it will look like it's going up and over, up and over. And then you could do one more going this way. So that looks cool just as it is also, but if you wanted to add some more to it, then you would just do the exact same thing. So now you're going to make it look like the thread is going under that way. So it's kind of similar to what we learned about last week with optical illusion. You could even add some really cool optical illusion effects to this, where you can make it really look like it's standing out. So you can do some really fun things with this woven. You can make it look like your animal has some clothes on, or you could make it look like that's what your texture of your animal looks like. You can do some really fun things. The next one is hairy or fuzzy, and so really it's just a bunch of lines together, but again, it gives it a really cool effect like it's hairy. The other thing that you can do on this, if you wanted to do long hair, you can add long pieces together, and you can make them closer together or farther together. You can even do some waves together. So you can do all sorts of fun things like that to get some textures on that. The next one is smooth. So you'll draw whatever shape that you want your animal to be, and on this one you'll notice that the lines are straight. So on wet, they were in a wave and they were wiggly, but on smooth, they're going straight across. And the last one is prickly. So this was a really fun one. Pointy is another word that I would use for this. This was great. We had some of the kids using these for unicorn horns, all sorts of fun things. So you're just doing the line up and down for that. So it's like a squished triangle, but then you can start adding other parts to it as well. And then again, like we were learning about in the optical illusion last week, you could make this really cool effect with some fun optical illusion stuff going on with it. So that's a really fun way to do that. Once you practice some of those, you can start working on your animal and what you would want your animal to be like. So this is kind of a mind map of some of the ideas that we had on how we created our animals. So in the very middle, you'll have what kind of animal do you want? I wanted an octopus, but you could do someone from Mars. You could do a tiger, a panda, catfish. There's a million different animals that you could choose from. And again, putting them together and being really creative on how that all turns out. Then thinking about what kind of body you want. Do you want it to be the body of a fish? Do you want it to be the body of a leopard? And what kind of texture do you want on your body? Do you want any of those different textures we talked about? Do you want it to look where it's kind of fluffy and furry, or more like scales and pointy, or all of those things? Then what kind of arms do you want? Do you want it to be long, short, skinny? So many cool different ways to do arms. And what kind of feet? And thinking even about what kind of animal tracks do you want it to leave? So when you're looking at animal tracks, do you want it to look like a horse's foot? Do you want it to be like a sea turtle or a tortoise? I mean, they're very different. A lobster, there's just so many cool feet you can choose from. And then I put body on there twice. So think about it twice, I guess. And then you have head. So do you want it to have horns? What kind of eyes do you want? Do you want to have big eyes? Do you want to have small eyes? What kind of ears and a nose do you want? There's so many cool things. And then what kind of mouth do you want? I put that off separate because I think mouths could be really cool too. So you can kind of create your own and think about, where you want to put your emphasis on. Do you want to emphasize the mouth, or do you want it just to be part of the head? Do you want to emphasize the body or the arms? Or there's just so many cool things that you can do with it. So start drawing. This is what I came up with. This is my octopus with cat ears, and then there's the pointy teeth, and I did some scales over here on his legs, and then I made him be able to protect himself with his prickly and pointy tentacles over there. So there's all sorts of really kind of fun things you can do to create your own. And the second part is how I made the wings. And so this is where you'll need your glue or your tape. So for me, I took some of the scraps that I had, and you'll have plenty of scraps when you're cutting it out, and you can just really create some fun designs. So, you know, I just kind of cut almost like a triangle shape, but I kind of angled it, and you could create wings that way. Another thing that you can do is to take some of your paper and you can crumple it up into little balls, and you could then attach it to, maybe that's how you want the eyeballs to stand out, or maybe you want to put it on the scales, or you know, you can do all sorts of fun things. You can even take it apart and it has a really cool fun pattern. So maybe you want to glue that on, maybe you want that to be his legs. Another fun thing that you could do is if you bend the end like this, so it's kind of like an L shape, you know, you can glue it on so it sticks out this way too. So maybe I want him to have a tongue that sticks out. The possibilities are limitless. There's so many fun things you can do with your creatures or your animals. So then once you have that all glued on, so I just glued him on the back of mine, you can start doing all the coloring, and you can decide what colors work for your animal. And then also you can decide, you know, do I want it to, mine wouldn't work because I used Sharpies so that you could see it, but maybe, you know, if you used some of these, you could color the front and the back. Maybe he does have eyes in the front and the back of his head, or maybe he has scales in the front and feathers in the back. You can do all sorts of fun things. The other thing that's really awesome is you can take some more of these scraps and you can make a fun friend. So maybe my octopus wants to have a fish friend or a turtle friend, or maybe he wants to have a bird that flies through the sky. And again, you can be really creative with those. So it's a really fun thing to do. I'm working on the textures and getting that all down. So anyways, thanks guys. We missed you, and we will see you next week. Thanks everyone.